All right. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Bullpen Blues. As always, I'm your co-host, Kevin Dixon, joined by our good buddy, David Esser. David, how we doing?
Kevin, we're recording after a Phillies win.
We still need to go back and check what our record is on record day. Can't be good. This does not happen often.
This feels like a foreign concept.
It feels like much better of a split than it would if they lost today.
Yes. I love ending a series.
We talked about that earlier this year when they dropped 2-3 to Atlanta. We were like, they won the finale. You know, you can feel good about it heading out.
Yeah, road series in Miami. You look on the schedule when the schedule drops, and you circle 4-game series down in Miami. Like, oh, that's going to be a brutal one, and it was a brutal one.
It was a brutal one.
Yeah, they really should have won yesterday. They had a good chance in Game 1 as well. The offense was bad all series long. I believe they had a combined total of 8 hits during their 2 wins, so that's not great. But Kevin, they somehow split the series. They won a Vince Velasquez start and a Spencer Howard start. So here we are, 25.
Yeah, what's really odd is, like, I work for a sports betting company, so like I'm looking at lines and stuff all day, and the over/under for each of these games was like 7, and like that's pretty low for a baseball game. So like all series long, I'm like, man, I guess they really don't think they're going to score any runs in this series, and they didn't. The Phillies, what they have 9 runs for the series, 8 or 9.
I'd have to go double check, but no, not a lot of offense. And Kevin, before we jump into each game individually, something we did touch on is like the Phillies' offense was bad this week.
Yeah,
but they're also missing their entire middle of the order, which is I've shied away from using the injury excuse before because I think having depth is important. But when you're down Bryce, JT, Didi, like it's hard to generate offense without those 3.
Yeah, and there's a fine line, like you said, like because like you can be critical of the team, like you're not blaming the injuries. Like when people were just bashing the offense recently, like they're right, they're not performing, but like you said, man, they're missing their cleanup hitter, their 3-hole hitter, who's their star player, and they're missing some pop from the shortstop position. So over a full season, if all 3 of those guys are healthy, what are they missing? Like 80 homers? Like those guys had a lot of home runs between them. They drive the ball, they drive in runs. And it's not surprising that the Phillies really struggled to score without them this week. But the pitching was good enough. Realistically, they probably should have at least won 3 of 4. The defense really let them down last night. But they're keeping their head above water without some of their big guns. They really need to get these guys back, though, because the rest of the division is starting to pick up a little bit. Phillies are now 2.5 out. So they're in second place, though, still. But the Mets just had a nice little week. Played the Rockies, though, at home. So,
well, we didn't beat the Rockies.
Yeah, they were at Coors Field. Phillies would have swept them in Citizens Bank Park.
Yeah, of course they would have. No, I absolutely agree. And look, the Didi thing is something we haven't really talked about. Kevin, he was one of their best, if not their best, run-producing players in 2020. I mean, I believe, led the team in RBIs. He was batting cleanup by the end of the season. Him not being good to start the season, followed by this weird elbow injury where we don't know when he's going to be back. I don't know if he's swinging a baseball bat yet. Losing his impact has been huge.
Yeah, and I've been annoyed with him this year because of the injuries and just because I felt like his numbers were inflated because he hasn't really been good, but he'll hit a big home run. Like he has a couple like 3-run homers, like a grand slam or 2. Really boost those RBI numbers. But at the end of the day, they're missing that pop in their lineup right now. I would have felt a lot better about this series if he was playing in it. Instead, we got the mixture of Nick Maton and Ronald Torreyes, who has somehow played his way back into the rotation, and he's been pretty good.
I was going to say, Ronald Torreyes is the best player on the team. Like, let's make sure we give some respect.
He's been good. It's someone we were hard on, too.
Yeah, we had no clue why he made the team. Coming out of spring training, and he's shown us. I mean, some gutsy at bats, some good defense. I mean,
good hustle today.
Yeah, he's game-winning RBI.
You saw the play, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like crazy, he beat that out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Amazing what happens when you run hard to first base.
Yeah. But hey, like you said, we got out of there with a split. It's never fun playing the Marlins. So now we're on to Tampa Bay.
Yeah, and before we get to Tampa Bay, Kevin, so I wanted to look at each game just briefly. I don't want to
Yeah.
spend too much time going through the entire series, but game one, Zach Eflin took the mound. Another
Yep.
kind of rocky start for him. But Kevin, something we've talked about before, and we're going to have to bring to light again, is the discrepancy between Zach Eflin's ERA and his
Yep.
FIP is one of the highest in baseball.
Yep.
His FIP is a 2.91. His
Can you
ERA.
can you explain what that is, by the way? Just like
Absolutely.
for our listeners who aren't aware.
Yeah, so for those who are unfamiliar with FIP, it's fielding independent pitching, which essentially takes ERA but evaluates it to a point of like, all right, if you had league average defense, this is what your ERA would be. So obviously the Phillies, we have the worst defense in baseball at the moment.
Yep.
So our FIP is not, the difference is huge. And right now, Zach Eflin, he's almost giving up an extra run per start just because of the defense. And that's obviously not something we can fix right now, just because you can't blow up the entire infield and start all over. But maybe in the future, at the trade deadline, finding a way to get some defenders behind Eflin, behind Aaron Nola, two guys who induce a lot of ground balls, a lot of weak contact that just aren't turning into outs right now. I mean, I was watching Eflin pitch and he gave up a couple runs, but I was sitting there like, Kevin, he pitched a good game.
I mean, he gave up a bloop double to Corey Dickerson. It just dropped in, and it was second and third, but nobody out. And it was like, you got to be kidding me. It's the same thing with Nola and even Wheeler the other day. He had one. I know we mentioned it on the last show. First batter of the game, hit a blooper to right that dropped in, had an expected batting average of 230, and it dropped in. And that's just a product of the defense has no range; they can't cover any ground, and it killed them against Miami. And you're right; it's making guys like Eflin and Nola look a lot worse than they've been. Who both of those guys have ERAs in the high threes now, when their FIPs are sub 3. I mean, like he said, it indicates that you, as a pitcher, you've been unlucky. And if it's higher than your ERA, you've been lucky. Your defense has been helping you out. Both of those guys, like you said, they induce the weak contact. Every now and then you'll have Nola strike out double digits. Like he's pretty good with that. But sometimes when his stuff isn't on, he can still get outs by inducing that weak contact. It's not working with this defense for him or Eflin.
No, it's absolutely not. I believe in the Eflin start he gave up a few hits where the expected batting average was like sub 200. Like we're talking like 150, 190, and they were turning into hits. And yeah, you point something out. Look, Eflin and Nola, they've been high strikeout guys in the past, but when your fastball is that low, I mean, they both sit kind of 93, 94, 95, your room for error is lower. You're not Zach Wheeler. We watch him start. Guys are almost never squaring him up because he throws so hard. Which is fine. Everybody pitches to their own tune. What I prefer, if Nola had 101 mile per hour fastball, sure, that's not the type of pitcher he is. But that then turns onto the front office to understand who your best pitchers are and how you need to build a good defense behind them so that you can get, the most amount of worth out of a Nola, out of an Eflin, out of whoever, to where you're not just relying on these guys striking out 12 every time they take the mound.
Yeah, you hit it on the head. And like Spencer Howard today, and when he goes is a good example because he has that severe drop in velocity. His fastball drops like 6 miles per hour on average or something as he gets deeper into the game. But early on, he's cruising. The last two starts we've seen it. He was really good in the first 2 or 3 innings of those games. And then when his fastball velo drops, he's walking guys. Guys are hitting singles, which I don't know off the top of my head somebody expected batting average on some of the hits that he gave up. But you notice once that velocity drops and you're relying more on your defense. I mean, the Phillies have the worst defense in baseball, statistically. We've seen it, but statistically, they have the worst defense. It comes back to bite those guys who just they can't get the swings and misses. We saw it with Coonrod in the game last night. You could tell he didn't have his stuff. He couldn't put guys away. And then eventually, you knew John Birdie was going to get hit. I just knew it. He had 7 foul balls in a row. Then he shoots one to the right side that gets by, and it's just 3-2 Marlins. And then Brad Miller goes under his glove on a ground ball. 4-2 Marlins. It's just what's been happening to these guys.
It's a dangerous game to play, and we all knew the defense was going to be an issue heading into the season, but there was kind of that sense among the organization where it didn't really matter because the offense was going to be so good, and the problem is the offense hasn't been great due to some players underperforming, due to injuries, due to whatever the case is. So now you're looking back and you're like, all right, Alec Bohm, for example, I'm just going to use him as an example. You're not hitting the ball great. Well, can you get me a few nice outs at third base once in a while? The answer is no. So now it's just become a disaster. And again, we get these starts from Eflin where he wasn't perfect. He wasn't even particularly great, but he was good enough to where he shouldn't have allowed 4 runs across home plate.
Yep.
But he did because the defense is just doing him no favors.
Yeah, and even probably their slickest field and infielder blew that game open on Eflin the other night. He had Ronald Torres, a ground ball right at him. That opened the floodgates in that inning. That was big. I believe it would have been 2 outs, nobody on. And instead, you got a guy on base. Next guy gets a hit. Dickerson doubles or triples into the gap, and then the ball game gets away from you.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because the pitching's probably been better than it's led on to be. Not saying it's been fantastic or anything, but it's probably been better than it shows in the stats.
I mean,
as a whole team,
it's absolutely been better. It's not even a probably. It's absolutely been better. And this is an issue that's not going to go away. And I don't know how they're going to fix it.
You've got to get some guys at the deadline that can play some defense, man. Maybe that's the priority. Maybe you add another bullpen arm or another rotation piece, but they need to get guys who can actually play defense. They can sub them in late in the game if it comes down to it, because that was the 8th inning that game got away from them. They were a couple outs away.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, so moving to game 2, a guy who's actually been lucky as opposed to unlucky, Vince Velasquez. Kevin, another fantastic start from the right-hander. A lot of hard contact, but his pitches keep finding gloves, and he's been arguably the Phillies' best or second best starting pitcher this season, just from an ERA standpoint.
Yep. It's crazy, isn't it? Maybe it's just the fact is that they're hitting the ball so hard off Vince that it doesn't have time to drop in. The other one, they're bloops,
forcing the fielders to catch it because it's smoked right at him.
Yeah, he's hitting it right. They're hitting him right at him really hard. So, and it's no bloops off of him. Yeah. And what sucks, and it doesn't suck because it's fun. We're all right. We were disappointed he didn't make a start a week ago. But it sucks because people are starting to buy back in, and it's common, dude. I'm not even saying he should lose his job in the rotation if he has a bad start, because he's been good enough to where you probably throw him a bone and give him another turn if he's really bad, because who else are you going to go to? But yeah, it's coming.
I have that Reds game after the weekend circled because I think that might be the one. The Reds have been
they can score some runs.
Oh yeah, they can score some runs, and they like themselves a fastball. But yeah, Vince, he's been weird because again, you look at his baseball savant numbers and his exit velocity, his barrel percentage, his hard hit percentage. They're all some of the worst in baseball. I mean, guys are squaring him up. They're hitting the ball hard, and they keep turning into outs.
It's working.
And look, baseball's a funny sport. Sometimes it's not always about the exit velocity or the average hard hit percentage or whatever metric you want to use. Vince has been good. He's absolutely earned a stay in the rotation for the meantime. I agree. I said this last episode. I probably said it the episode before. I think that bad outing is coming. But again, if you can substitute 6 great outings for one bad outing, I'll take it. I'll take it every single day.
Yeah, and it's funny now, the way that teams evaluate these we have all these additional stats. Think of all the guys that just hung around for years that just stunk. There's so many of them that just hung around and they were just not good, but teams didn't evaluate it the same way. There's got to be so many guys, man.
Yeah, no, and then again, then you get a guy like Vince where he kind of breaks through that evaluation process. So you never know. All right, Kevin, Aaron Nola. This was a guy who has not looked too great as of late. Showed up yesterday. Again, this was a game they should have won. He was very, very good. I don't know if he was at his best quite yet, but it looks like
he was still fighting it. Yeah, he was still fighting it. But hey, I mean, he gave up 1 run over 6 innings. We'd like to see more length out of him.
Absolutely. And again, moving forward, June has been a weird month for him in the past. He doesn't always perform great, which doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't really mean anything, though.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. But we need Nola to get back to the 6 or 7 innings every single start, Let's keep it to 0, 1, 2 runs. We don't need a complete game shutout every single time. We don't need 12 strikeouts every single game, but we need to be feeling like we're at an advantage every single time he takes the mound, because obviously the last couple starts he was putting us into a hole rather early, right?
I feel like his biggest thing is too, like how we were just talking with the defense is hurting him. Like those guys will get on base and then he gives up a 3-run homer. Like that seems to be where it gets away from him. He gives them up in a group. He's not giving up single. He gets guys on base and then he gives up a long ball.
Yeah, and obviously we're able to sit here and pinpoint that the defense is an issue. I'm sure Nola knows that too.
They all know it, dude.
Yeah, I mean,
knows it. Yeah.
Yeah. Joe's out there saying we just need to catch the ball. Yeah, you're right, dude.
He's right. I mean, it's crazy to see and just be like, it's literally fundamental baseball stuff you learn when you're a kid.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Like what people don't do, and it was always preached when I was younger, is use 2 hands to catch the ball. You squeeze with your other one on the glove. Nobody does that.
No, well, it doesn't look as cool. It's just
snagging it with one hand. I like it. I'm not even saying that's happened, but like, I like getting the out.
Yeah, no, but I'm sure Nola.
Homer, you know.
Yeah, but this is probably the worst defense Nola's ever pitched in front of.
God, this might be the worst defensive team the Phillies have ever had. I mean, I'm just spitballing, but like,
yeah,
it's pretty bad, David.
But I'm sure that's adding some stress to where maybe, he gives up a single on a ball that should have been caught, or, it's an error by the shortstop or the first baseman or whomever. And then maybe he starts to get in his own head a little bit, which is, look, who am I to say, like, just don't worry about it. But we got to find that balance between, look, the defense has got to do their job. And then Nola's got to understand, hey, look, if this defense is bad, they're going to need you to really be special this year to overcome it.
Yeah. You know, what's crazy too, is just from watching, like going back and watching how he looks on MLB TV, like how you have the recap, or just from watching the games live, teams are attacking his curveball. I mean, the Braves were a great example in that the game where he gave up 4 in the first. He struck someone out on a fastball right down the middle as if the guy wasn't looking for it. And then he threw a first pitch curveball to Dansby Swanson, who was all over it. So, like, they're hunting that curveball on him, and it's come back to bite him.
Yeah, and again, that kind of goes back to the pitching philosophy conversation where it's like if his curveball's not working one night, his fastball isn't good enough to where you can just start pumping the heat. Where with Zach Wheeler or a Garrett Cole or a Jacob deGrom, if their slider's off one night, it doesn't matter because you throw
because they can throw a fastball exactly
located on the corners. And obviously, look, Nola's not going to develop 6 miles on his fastball overnight. So we just, we got to crispen it up a little bit, start to maybe use the changeup a little bit more, start to continue to work the curveball. I did think his curveball looked significantly better on Wednesday than it has over his last couple of starts, where he was feeling a little more confident just throwing it in there, because it's still a tough pitch to make hard.
Yeah, no doubt. The thing is too, like, and I know he knows, I'm not preaching to anybody, but like, you can't become too reliant on it because guys are picking up that spin. I mean, if you throw it 2-3 times in a row, guys are timing it up. But, we'll see. We'll see if he's able to continue, because he was pretty good the other day. So he was in line for the win when he left, which is a shame. Odubel Herrera got him there by robbing a home run to end the 6th inning. But let's see if he can keep that momentum rolling into his next outing.
Yeah, and let's actually pivot to Odubel real quick because you brought him up. Kevin, he's continued to be one of the best players on the Phillies this year. I believe actually defensively he might be the best defensive player on the Phillies at the moment, just because JT hasn't played a lot of games this year.
Not saying much, but I mean, he's definitely not a minus in center.
No, he's been very good in center. He's had a few weird plays, but he's made up with it with some good range. Obviously, robbed a home run.
He's been so good that they're playing Quinn in left.
Yeah,
they're keeping him in center. Yeah.
I mean, he hit cleanup today, Kevin. That's how good they feel about his bat.
I know. What year is it?
Yeah, no.
Like they had him and Rhys Hoskins in the middle of their order. What is this? 2017? Like what?
We are going backwards with the team. We got Roman Quinn leading off, Odubel at cleanup.
I'm rightfully so though, because with everyone that's out, like him and Rhys are like their boppers, man. Mm-hmm. It sucks to say that because like they didn't even have McCutchen today.
Yeah.
But I mean, Odubel stepped up today, hit a double, and then he hit a big leadoff triple to start the 9th. So he's been making his presence felt, and he's making a difference. They're a game under 500 with him playing a lot of the games. It'd be hard to imagine if they continued to trot Moniak, Hazley, Quinn out in center field. Odubel's he's bumped him up a couple games in the win column.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's won a few games by himself. I remember the Nats game. If he doesn't hit home run in the ninth, we lose that ball game.
And he was inches away from a 3-run homer to tie it in Toronto or in Dunedin.
Odubel, Reese, Matt Joyce right now, like those are the three big bats.
Got to get rid of him.
All right, yeah. So real quick on Odubel because then we'll pivot to Matt Joyce just because why not?
Because why not? Yeah.
I've seen some people start to talk about Odubel's future with the team, and look, it's a little premature. We're only in May. A lot of baseball left to be played, but Kevin, he's on the hook for $10 million next season. But there's a club option, a buyout. I believe it's for $2.5 million. It might even be a little bit less where you can get out of that. And I think the general consensus heading into the season was they're absolutely going to have a buyout.
There was no doubt. Yeah.
Because A, $10 million is a lot, and B, Odubel haven't played baseball in 2 years. We're in a weird spot now because $10 million is still a lot to pay for an slightly above average center fielder if we want to call Odubel that. But also, what would the backup plan be?
Yeah, a bit. It's not like I would argue he's been above average because his batting average is above the league average. His OPS is above the league average. His on-base percentage is above the league average. And he's not a minus player as a defensive run saved. So he's probably been one of the better center fielders in the National League this year. Would you disagree?
No,
I'm not saying he's the best.
He has been
top 5, but he's in the top half.
Yeah, he's probably top 10.
Yeah. I don't know, man. And it's interesting because, and this kind of brings us to a talking point we wanted to get to. Because if you're sitting there in July and we're still bouncing back and forth, win-loss, even if we're a couple games back, it really makes you wonder, do you look to move them? Because if you would have told them back in February, March, you would have told the Phillies they could get something of value for Odubel Herrera, who wasn't even in the team's plans, they'd probably jump at it. But then you're also in the point of you're potentially in a division race and you're subtracting an important player. So you're walking a fine line there because it's interesting to think about potentially selling off a player like Odubel and picking something up for him if he's not really in your long-term plans. But you're also in a division race.
Yeah, and this was a topic we kind of touched on last episode, and I think it's still worthwhile because we went 2-2 this past series, so it's not like they've gotten any better since the last time we talked. But yeah, I wrote an article for Section 215. If anyone wants to head over and read it, it was like 2,000 words long. I really dove deep into.
Good read.
Thank you. I dove deep into kind of who could the Phillies look to, and I'm putting this in quotations, sell at the trade deadline because I prefaced the article with, I don't think they should sell for prospects, right? That doesn't make any sense with their timeline. We shouldn't be trading good players now for 19-year-olds that are stashed away in single A. Yeah. But you're right. You look at a guy like Odubel, like a Hector Nears, like an Archie Bradley. Brad Miller was another really good example, Kevin, that you threw my way when I was working on the piece. Like those are guys on expiring deals, in Odubel's case, on a lot of money in the future that you might want to get out of, that you could get players back for value that are maybe on cheaper contracts, that better align with Dave Dombrowski's vision, that are maybe better defensively, which is obviously a big thing for the team right now. It's weird because, look, still a lot of baseball left to be played before the trade deadline. We kind of got to see where we're there. But it's still in the back of my mind that Dombrowski, at any moment, could jump into action. Look, he's been known when he starts going, he starts going. He makes a lot of moves all at once. Well, I think we've kind of seen his vision already a little bit with the Alvarado trade, with the Coonrod trade.
Yep.
Signing so much starting pitching this past offseason, kind of a semblance of depth, a semblance of guys on cheap contracts, guys with high velocity. And I wouldn't be surprised for him to look to bring more players like that into organization, with the vision being, all right, let's be really good in 2022 and 2023, because as we've seen this year, they're probably not a playoff team. You never know.
Never know in this division, man.
Yeah, and even then, like if they get to the playoffs, are they going to be able to beat the Padres, or the Giants or the
Personally,
Dodgers.
I know you disagree, but I would like to take my chances. I'd
Oh,
love to,
I'll take
you
my
know,
chances. Like,
yeah,
who
like I'd
knows?
love to get there, and anything can happen. You saw the
Um,
Nationals win the World Series because
yeah,
they're pitching, but they had the big guns at the top of the rotation. Like the thing with the Phillies is if you get there, you have Nola and Wheeler and Eflin. I'm feeling pretty good with those guys, David.
Well, and you know what the common denominator between the 2019 and the 2021 Phillies, Kevin?
Go ahead.
Anibal Sanchez, who's still out there. Why is he not on the team yet?
Yeah, it's just that's the thing for me that's so like it makes it so tough is because look, we've watched the Phillies now for years. They're very uninspiring a lot of the time. They'll suck you in for a minute and then spit you right back out for making you look like a fool for buying in. It's just David, if they could just get to the playoffs, like you just never know, especially with their pitching. Like I really think that they could give teams trouble because you got to face Zach Wheeler in game one because that's who I would go with. Getting in a wild card game, which isn't going to happen, I would go Wheeler. Then you got Nola in game two. Like, what if the Phillies steal game one in the first round? It's a 5-game set, and then you got to face Aaron Nola, and it's kind of a must-win for the other team. Like that's what like it makes it so like intriguing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I think for that to even become a reality, they still got to fix the defense,
yes,
right?
Of course.
Like because Nola right now, Nola and Eflin, they're not giving you the production that they should be because the defense is so bad. And then you got to fix the bench. I mean, we mentioned Matt Joyce. He's like 1 for 30, dude.
Oh
His last.
I'm really hoping that like these last couple starts are just like them being like, look, dude, this is your last chance until these guys get healthier. You're gone because they're probably going to bring up Hazley when he's good, and that's who will probably get the FA would be Matt Joyce.
You would assume so, but I mean, and this goes even deeper than just the Phillies, Kevin. I saw something on Twitter the other day, and I can't remember who tweeted it out. But like the team's AAA affiliate, Lehigh Valley, they're playing with like a 2-man bench at the moment because the organizational depth is just brutal. And I know Dave, he signed a few veterans who like have just taken years to to enter the organization. Like I know they signed some guy a couple weeks ago. I have no idea what happened to him, and then some other guy who like asked for his release after a couple days with the team. So right now, Matt Joyce, he's there because they have no one else on the roster. Roman Quinn, he's there because they have no one else to call up. So there's a lot of steps I think they have to take first before they even start thinking about the playoffs. The defense has got to get better.
No doubt, yeah. I mean, we can't start really thinking about the playoffs in general anyway, even if they were in first place. Dude, it's not early, but it's still pretty early, dude. Like you can make the 3 games weeks left. No, even if they were in first place, you can't even really realistically start thinking about that, especially because every team in the division's right there. But like you brought up Quinn and Joyce. I would keep Quinn over Joyce because Quinn offers speed. Like Joyce doesn't offer anything. Like I guess you could argue pop, but like, dude, he's not Jay Bruce. He's not a player like that who can go up there. I guess he could run into one, but like not at the level of like because like he's supposed to be this year's Jay Bruce. Like that was kind of like the selling and like no way. Like it's not even close.
Yeah, I mean I don't disagree at all. I think in a perfect world, neither player is on the roster.
For sure. But is Matt Joyce on any other team in baseball? If they DFA him, I don't think anybody claims him.
No, he's gonna retire if he gets DFA'd.
Because like the younger teams that aren't in it doesn't make any sense to bring him in. And the older teams or the teams that are in it, he stinks.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I guess the only reason I keep referencing the trade deadline is because I think Dombrowski would be wise to start making his moves sooner rather than later. Yeah. The prices only go up at the trade deadline. So if you want to sell, you'll always have that option. But if you want to be buyers, sometimes it's a better idea to start filling out your roster now. Start poking around the minor league. Start poking around with some veterans if you want to bring them on kind of tryout deals. Let them get a few at-bats in AAA. Give them a few games with the major league roster, whether it's adding bench bats. I'm still interested in an Anibal Sanchez. I know it kind of looks like they figured out the back end of the rotation now, but there's
they still need something else. Yeah.
There is no such thing as too much pitching. If you can DFA Matt Moore for Anibal Sanchez, I'm doing it in a heartbeat.
Bring back Ivan Nova.
Yeah,
I'd rather see him than Matt Moore.
I would like to see something start to happen to where we can be like, all right, Dombrowski is making moves. He has a plan. He's starting to put the plan in action.
I would have loved to see him go get Billy McKinney, which this is off topic, and it's not really like anything we're going to, because we still have other points we want to get to. It's been a half hour now. But Billy McKinney would have been a great addition, David. They did, the Mets didn't give up anything for him. They gave up a guy who was like 18, never played pro ball, and isn't in their top 30 prospects.
The Mets have done that a few times where they're giving up nothing just for random guys.
And McKinney's like 26, and he's a former first-round pick of the Yankees. And he's had success.
Mm-hmm.
I was all in on that. They should have when he was DFA'd last year. I wanted them to claim him.
Yeah, and there's other players like that around baseball where you just gotta be hunting, and again, we're hoping that's what Dombrowski's doing.
That's how bad it is. We're complaining about that fringe move by the Mets.
Yeah, no,
that's how bad the Phillies need to do something.
Would love a little 2-game sweep over Tampa to calm the nerves.
Ooh, go to. They're in Cincy, right?
They're in Cincy.
What a weird road trip. What a weird trip. But
going all over the place.
27 to 26 heading into Cincy on Monday. I'm with it.
Yeah, and you sweep Cincy and we're chilling. All right, so we're already running a little late. Kevin, let's talk about Spencer Howard real quick because he made another start today. He was cruising through 4 innings, and then the 5th inning came, and the velocity drop came, and the lack of control came, and before you know it, the bases are loaded. Luckily, Ranger Suarez, who has just been a blessing.
He's a dude.
He is a dude. His control is insane at the moment. And he's still very young as well. I'm very excited.
And he's like poised, man. Like he's like emotionless.
Yeah.
In like a good way.
No, I mean they're throwing him out there with the bases loaded, and he's just like, all right, cool.
Hey, strike out. He throws strikes too, which is a huge thing. Like he's around the plate.
Been very happy with him. But yeah, Spencer Howard. And Kevin, I know you have your kind of thoughts on him. I want to hear that first, and then I want to give my my rebuttal when it comes to Spence.
I just think at this point in his career, he's a reliever. I just don't think he's a starting pitcher. The velo drop is incredibly concerning, David. That's not like you can be like, oh, a guy's not stretched out, or it's not normal to have that significant of a drop, especially what is he, 24 years old? It's not a good sign. That's basically like, I'm not like saying get rid of the guy. I think he should be a part of the team. I just think that he's one, how we were talking before we got on, the fan base probably overrates him a bit. I don't think he's as good as people make him out to be. That's not to say that I think he stinks, but the velo drop to me is just incredibly, incredibly concerning, and we saw it again today.
You know what else hasn't been normal? His entire last 2 seasons in professional baseball.
For sure, yeah, no doubt.
Between being called up and then back to a reliever, then back to a starter, then down to AAA. We're going to stretch you out because Chase Anderson is the worst pitcher in baseball. I know I'm in the minority here. I'm feeling okay about Spencer. I think of all the things to have an issue with, stamina and strength, I think are one of the most fixable because that's just a matter of, hey, bud, we're going to get you in the weight room this offseason. We're going to strengthen up that old shoulder. We're going to have you throw more pitches during spring training. You're going to be good to go. What I saw today was for 4 innings. For those 4 innings, again, like the 5th, bad, disaster. Get him out of there. But for 4 innings, absolutely. For 4 innings, Kevin, he was the Phillies' best pitcher this week, straight up.
Yeah, he's good, dude. But your answer to we'll just strengthen you up this offseason, dude, he's 24, 25 years old. He's been playing baseball for a long time. He's been a starting pitcher in the minor leagues. It's not like he hasn't done it before. It's not good that he's 24, 25. He's had multiple arm injuries, and his velocity is plummeting mid-start.
I'm not. Obviously, I wish he was going 6 or 7 innings, but think
it's just not encouraging at such a young age. Is basically what I'm trying to get at. I understand why the Phillies want to limit his innings. I see it now. Yeah. It makes sense.
I'm kind of viewing this the opposite. I'm looking at looking at Spencer starts, and I'm saying, hey, he gave you 4 innings of really productive baseball where his changeup was moving, his slider was moving, his fastball was overpowering guys. That's good to me. I think that's really positive. Again, and look, I know we view this season differently. I've always kind of viewed 2021 as an evaluation year. Let's see what we have in some of these guys for 2022. So if you get a full year of work for Spencer where he's going 4 to 5 innings every start, and then you get to 2022 and he's going 5 to 6 innings every start, that's great. That's fantastic. Now you have 4 really good starting pitchers you can rely on. And I think you're right in the sense that fans have been so hyped up about Spencer Howard for so long. Because, I mean, this team has been
Because they're starved. Yeah,
they're starved for something. Like they want to win so bad. And I get that. And I get people wanted to win last year. People wanted to win in 2019 when they
I wanted to
signed
win in
everybody.
2015, dude, when they were 63 and 99.
So I mean, I totally get that. And I just think with Spencer, I mean, this is still essentially his rookie season. I think labeling him a reliever this early in his baseball career is premature. Look, if he's still doing this time next year, then yeah, maybe we revisit this conversation and say he might just be a good reliever for us.
There's nothing wrong with that, though. Like, I'm not like using it as like a negative because like we've seen how important the bullpen is. But this is just what I want to run down, and this is why I haven't been overly impressed with him. His debut, 4 2/3, gave up 4 runs. His second start, 3 1/3, 3 runs. His third start, 3 2/3, 1 run. All right. Fourth start, 5 innings, 2 runs. Fifth start, 4 innings, 3 runs. Sixth start, 3 2/3, 3 runs. Then we get to this year. First outing of the year, gave up a run in a relief appearance. Then he goes an inning in the third, gets 3 strikeouts against the Giants. Great. Rockies, 3 earned in 2 innings. Two earned in 3 innings against the Red Sox. And then today he gave up 1 in 4 innings. Like, he hasn't had an outing where you're like, I guess today might have been his first one where you're like, damn, he looked great. Like, that's my whole thing is like, I just haven't been impressed with what I've seen.
I just think that's a hyper-focused way to look at a guy who's would you rather
I get it. Yeah, like
10
I get
starts, 10 starts, and we're looking at his earned run average.
He hasn't had one good one though.
Oh, I mean, Zach Eflin didn't have one good start until like his 5th year in baseball. Like that's kind of where I'm at, where I think, look, yeah, once in a while you're going to get these generational Steven Strasburg, Aaron Nola type pitch. I don't know if I want to go that far with Aaron Nola. But, the Steven where they come in and they're striking out 14 guys in their debut, and you're like, all right, cool, we have an ace. Get his extension papers ready for whenever his service time is up. And then I think you have guys who it takes them a few years. And I think we've seen that with the Phillies. I mean, Zach Wheeler is a really good example where battled arm injuries with the Mets. They were at a point where they didn't want to keep him, and the Phillies threw money at him, and everyone was like, "Oh, I don't know about that." Now here he is at 29, 30 years old. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball, and I think that's just sometimes how the sport works, where guys are late bloomers. I mean, we're seeing it right now with Alec Boehm. It's not always just a straight line of development. Sometimes it's curvy and it's up and down. And I think with Spencer, do I wish he was giving you 6 innings every outing? Sure. I think we'd be one of the better teams in baseball if he was giving you 6 innings every single time he pitched. But I also think there's a point to saying this is like he hasn't even made 20 starts as a pitcher yet. He might be a reliever, he might not, but he's 24. I think
where do you project him? Where's his ceiling for you?
Oh, I think his ceiling is a top of the rotation arm. I still think that ceiling's there. I think you just look at his track record in the minor leagues. The stuff is undoubtedly there, especially if he can hone in that changeup a little bit more. So I think the ceiling is still there, which I think as long as that ceiling is there, you keep riding the wave of Spence.
Yeah, I'm not at that level. Could maybe see a middle of the rotation arm. Hey, dude, I'm rooting for him. Like I don't want people to think like I'm rooting against the guy. Like, he's wearing red
number 1 Spencer Howard hater, Kevin Dixon. Lock it in.
I will accept that. And hey, man, I hope he proves me wrong. I really do.
He will. I'm all in on.
I hope so. I'm rooting for
number 1 Spencer Howard podcast right here. All right, so we're already at the 40-minute mark. Kevin, I know you had some things you wanted to talk about. Let's get to those real quick.
Yeah. So Andrew Knapp stinks, David.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rafael Marchand.
He's
all right in his very, very, very limited action. Should he have a role moving forward on this team when everyone's back healthy?
Yup.
Yeah.
Yup.
It's probably not going to happen because they love Andrew Knapp, and he calls a good game. He does. He just can't contribute with the stick, man. It's half the game. It's important. And when you have other guys in your lineup who can't hit, it really, really, really magnifies Andrew Knapp. Like they got him hitting 6, David, 6th and 7th this week. It's just like, you see him coming up to the plate, you're like, all right, this isn't out. There's no way he's getting hit.
And we've talked about it before. The only issue with having JT on the team as your cleanup hitter is that when he misses games, because catchers, they can't catch every single game, is your backup catcher has to be able to give you something. And Knapp, he's had a few good moments. You know, he's clutch, blah, 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 runners in scoring position. But he's hitting what, like 150 now?
Well, he's under 150. So, like, that's my point is, like, I understand your backup catcher is not meant to be a great offensive player, but, like, he is legitimately giving you nothing. Like, literally nothing.
And Marchand's what? He's like 22.
Yeah.
He already looks a little bit better.
It's probably really premature. I know, like, it's probably really premature. But, like, next year, would not be surprised if Marchand's the backup because Andrew Knapp will be a free agent. Like, are we really going to do the Andrew Knapp thing again? He's going to be 30 years old. Like,
well, and this goes to the same argument I just gave with Spencer Howard. Is like, if we're going to look at this as an evaluation year, let's evaluate Marchand. Let's see if he can do this for an entire season.
I was pumped he was in the lineup today. I was excited.
Yeah.
He went out and went 2 for 4.
He went 2 for 4, and he had an incredible defensive play where he snagged the guy at first base. No, I've been impressed with him. I was excited when he came up last year. He's always been
homer. Remember that 3-run homer he hit?
Oh, of course I do. He's always been very highly ranked on the Phillies prospect list, which a lot of people have never understood. But like, he's ranked that high for a reason.
He's a good defensive player.
Yes.
So it's like you just need, and it's the thing with Knapp. Like, we're not asking you to carry us or anything, dude. But like, you
just like hit 200,
140 with an OPS under 400. It just can't happen, David. You're playing with. That's like a pitcher's batting line.
Yeah, I have Knapp's splits pulled up real quick. So he has 1 hit in his last 25 at bats, and then he has 6 hits in his last 44 at bats.
That is just atrocious.
Yeah, and people really like Andrew Knapp.
Sure, he's a great guy. Yeah, I'm sure he's a great dude.
And you always hear like the best backup catcher in baseball.
He would start on other teams.
He can start on other teams. He calls such a good game, and I think the calling games thing might even be a tad overrated because I think it's more
important. I don't want to like overlook that because it is important.
It's important, but is it an effective Knapp just being like a student of the game, or is it more so that he's caught pitches from Eflin, Vince, Nola for the last like 7 years? He's just comfortable with these guys.
Yeah. Here's how I look at Andrew Knapp is he's going to have a role in a major league organization for the next near decade because he calls a good game. Like he's like a veteran, like Jeff Mathis would be a comp in my opinion.
Jeff Mathis.
It was like the worst offensive player of the last 20 years, but like he's always in an organization because he's a leader. And Andrew Knapp seems like a great dude. He's probably a leader. He's smart. You know, it's hard to hit the baseball. Like I get it, especially when like you got all that other stuff going on. But like, just like, man, it's just not good. And people wonder why they're not scoring runs. I mean, you just read that off. Matt Joyce is like 0 for his last 26. Knapp's 1 for his last 25. Like,
I miss JT. That's
no wonder they're not scoring.
Cannot wait for JT to get back with the team because
we got to keep our head above water, David, until we get some guys back. And I understand the rest of the division's hurt too, but that doesn't like negate the Phillies' injuries. Like there's still important players that they don't have.
Yeah, and like I said, I'd made the argument before, like, oh, every team's battling injuries, but we're down JT, Bryce, and Didi. Like, it's getting a tad excessive.
We missed Gene. Like, Gene's been out for a little bit of time. So, like, it's just – and you're getting nothing from Alec Boehm. So, like, it's just, like, magnified. Like, they need those guys. Those are legitimately their run producers. Them and Rhys Hoskins are the guys that drive runs in on this team. They're missing 3 of them.
Roman Quinn was out too. He's a big bat.
Yeah.
Real quick, we should have brought this up earlier in the show, but Rhys Hoskins, I do want to applaud his efforts this week. I think
tip my cap.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've been hard on him before, but we're always going to be a podcast who gives credit when credit is due. He was great this week, 2 home runs.
Absolutely.
Showed some passion and some leadership out there, which I think much appreciated for a team that's looked rather lifeless against the Marlins in the past.
Yeah, it was nice to see, and he's kind of gotten hot at the right time because David, they didn't have him this week. Like
we would have gotten swept.
They would have got shut out every game. Like I think he drove in a run in every game.
Yeah, he stepped up big time, which again,
Yeah.
if he can continue that, and then Harper comes back, and then JT comes back, we might have an offense that looks more similar to 2020.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, we are now 45 minutes deep. Kevin, anything else you wanted to touch on real quick?
It's not really Phillies related, but it was the most outrageous thing I've ever seen on the baseball diamond, and I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
What the hell was Will Craig doing today, David? Chasing Javi Baez. For those of you who haven't seen the play, look it up. I don't know how you haven't seen it. Essentially, Cubs had a guy on second with 2 outs in the third inning. Javi Baez hits a ground ball to third. Inning's over, right? It's a can of corn, David. Throw it to first. You put your foot on the bag, and it's over. Throw pulls the first baseman off the bag. Not a big deal. He caught it. He's still right at the bag. The runner's nowhere to be found. Javi Baez turns around, starts running back towards home plate. For whatever reason, Will Craig, the Pittsburgh Pirates first baseman, chases him down the line. Wilson Contreras around third, comes home for whatever reason, throws it to the plate. Runner safe at the plate, turns around, runs back up the line. Nobody space. They throw the ball down the right field line. It's the most ridiculous Major League Baseball play I've ever seen.
I prefer to look at his Javi Baez, wizard on the base.
What the hell was that guy doing? And how was nobody on his team like touch the base, touch first base?
Nah, man, you got to tag the runner.
Oh my God! And then his manager came out after the game and took the blame, but kind of threw a shot at him. Was like, first base hasn't moved in 140 years.
Yeah,
he has to know that, and I take responsibility. David, that was. I'm not even kidding. I've watched a lot of baseball in my 26 years. That was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. It was embarrassing. I'm surprised it didn't happen to the Phillies.
I was going to say, at least it didn't happen to the Phillies. All right, real quick, something I wanted to touch on before we get out of here.
Yes.
Joe Girardi made some comments after today's win, as Kevin just flashed up on the screen. He's losing his mind, where he kind of told reporters he was done talking about schematics,
anything,
lineups, anything. Strategy. Yeah. He's done. Kevin, I have some thoughts on this. I want to hear yours real quick before I jump to mine.
I think he's losing his damn mind. Like, he was in New York City before he came to Philly, dude. Like, I'm not out on Girardi or anything, but my opinion of him has shifted drastically in the last year and a half that I've got to see him manage the Phillies. I understand he's very annoyed, and that's probably where it's coming from. And like, it's our line of work. Look, I know that the journalists, it's not ideal for the manager to be fielding those questions, but like, dude, like, it's using us, like, we're doing our job, and supposed to give us something. And he's just basically said anybody, and it's still May, David. We have a long way to go.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm a traitor because I'm with Joe on this one.
All right.
And like, I get it. He's not been very good, and he's been irritating, and some of his moves make no sense. Yeah. I'm still of the belief that this is a guy who's won a World Series as a manager, and nobody on the Phillies has done that. Nobody within the Phillies organization has even sniffed a World Series,
except for the president of baseball operations, who has 2 of them.
Yeah, Dave Dombrowski, who's been bad. Yeah, whatever. Sometimes I forget about him because he's never doing anything. But no, I agree. I think Joe's frustrated, and I think he's frustrated with his players. He's probably frustrated with himself. I think he's really frustrated with Dave Dombrowski. I think he's frustrated with the media, and I think he's starting to show it a little bit, where he's tired of being asked about Bryce Harper's injury status. Because I don't think Joe knows it. I don't think he knows what's wrong with him.
You got to be mentally stronger, though. That's basically what I'm coming to with it. Is like, dude, it's May. Like, you're in Philadelphia. Like, what did you expect? Like, it's just nature of the job.
It doesn't matter what his answer is. He's going to be criticized. And look, again,
it's Philadelphia.
It's coming from someone who gets paid to write about the Phillies. Like, I'm hypercritical myself. But it's like, if Joe makes a pitching change in the 6th inning, he's an idiot. If he doesn't make the pitching change, he's an idiot. If he uses Alvarado in this spot, he's an idiot.
It's the nature of the job, man. It's the Eagles quarterback, the Phillies manager, and the Flyers goaltender. Those are the 3 main things in the city that get criticized.
I don't disagree at all, but I do
Yeah.
think he has a right to defend himself and push back.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
say,
It's only May, though, David. We got
Yeah,
a
but
long way to go.
Kevin, it's not his fault that his three best hitters all got injured at the same time.
It's not. Yeah, absolutely not.
It's
I'm
not
just
his fault that Dombrowski sunk $16 million in the bad pitchers this offseason.
Yeah, I just think you got to be a little stronger than that. You can't let on that you're feeling that way. But it's an emotional game. Like, I get it. Like, your emotions are running high.
I guess my viewpoint is it's less about him showcasing the emotion and him just having a right to stand up for himself and being like,
I get it. Yeah.
Whatever I tell y'all, you're going to criticize me for, so I'm just going to shut up and we're going to go try to win some baseball games, and then maybe we'll talk in a month if we're over 500. And then
what'll heal it if they go win games.
I agree.
Win games and it'll get much better.
Which is where I think old Dave Dombrowski needs to wake up and start acting, dude, so we can win some baseball games. Because thus far, the pitchers he's added, the bench pieces he's added, has only made this team worse. And I think Joe's very frustrated that he was handed Chase Anderson, Matt Moore, Archie Bradley, Brandon Kinsler, Matt Joyce, and none of them have been good.
Don't you slander Brad Miller.
Brad Miller's good. Yeah. That was a Matt Klentak signing.
Okay.
All right. Off day tomorrow.
Yep.
Then we're off to Tampa for the weekend. 2-game series. Hopefully.
This was we didn't even talk Tampa that much, but this was more of just like a rant-based Phillies. I don't even know. This episode went differently than I anticipated, and I'm not mad about that. We had a lot to say tonight.
Nothing like a good old 4-game trip to Miami.
Yeah, it'll really bring it out of you. Yeah. But you know where I stand, David. Let's go win a series this weekend.
Go win a series. They have to sweep to win it, technically.
Let's not lose it.
Let's split. I'll take a split. Tampa's good.
Yeah, I'm not going to be thrilled with it. I guess it depends. Are we winning game 1? Are we winning game 2?
Well, Ace is on the mound tomorrow, or on Saturday. So
Saturday, yeah. Oh, isn't that weird? Feels like it's tomorrow because they played so long ago today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, let's go win a series. Let's go to Cincinnati. Let's win a series. Let's come home and feel pretty good.
Let's win another series after that.
Let's
2 or 3, baby.
Let's just keep winning series, man.
Yeah, let's just go undefeated for the rest of the season. Yeah. Okay.
A good way to get to the playoffs.
Yeah, that would help, right? You would think.
Yeah.
All right. With that said, again, we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, all of the above. We're on Twitter, Facebook. Every single link can be found below, along with our YouTube. Again, Kevin has been doing a wonderful job making our YouTube videos look real pretty. He adds up all sorts of stats and banners. So please do check us out on YouTube. We've appreciated the support there. And we will be back either directly after the Tampa series, potentially after the Cincinnati series, because I am moving at the start of this week. So we will figure that out.
Yeah.
When it arrives.
Happy Memorial Day to everybody.
Yes.
Stay safe this weekend. David, best of luck on your move to Houston, Texas. Congratulations.
Yes, sir. We're going to H-Town.
Yep. But yeah, so that's about it.
All right. We are the Bullpen Blues Podcast, and we will talk to you all in a couple of days.
Go Phils.